Hey everyone, Joe here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get a nice clean reverb, how to keep it from sounding muddy. I've got 3 techniques to show you today to help you to get a better mix. So before we start, if you're very new to mixing and you're not sure how to use a reverb exactly, just the basics, what all the different parameters do and what they mean, I've got a video just for you. It's a beginner's guide to reverb, where to start with reverb. I'll leave a link on the screen now and in the description. But if you're happy with the basics and you know generally what you're doing with reverb, you just want to get a nice clean sound and stop it from muddying up your vocals and things, I'm going to help you with these 3 techniques. And then I'm going to share with you another little tip at the end that's really important. It's less of a technique, more of an approach to mixing that will help you get nicer sounding mixes where your reverbs are concerned. I've got an old mix session of mine up. I'm going to show you these reverb techniques on the vocals. Now, before you even think about putting these techniques into action, you need to make sure the original source vocal or whatever you're adding the reverb to sounds good to begin with. If you're adding reverb to rubbish recordings, it's going to sound rubbish. At the end of the day, a reverb is just a bunch of delays, basically, in the sense of how it works with a digital reverb. It's copying your recording and giving you a simulated ambience to it. If the original recording sounds bad, then the reverb that the plugin produces is going to sound bad as well. So it's important to make sure you're happy with your recordings first. That's normally why, on top of aiming for as best a recording as possible, I'll EQ and compress the vocal before adding any reverbs. So the first technique I want to show you is using pre-delay to keep your mixes from sounding muddy. We'll just have a listen to the track that we've got with no reverbs on at all, just to see what we're working with.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you
and then
find.
add in this plate reverb with no pre-delay.
Road if you choose to walk it blind. Just take your chances with whatever.
Now, to me, although I like the sound of the reverb,
then open up your mind with just
it's starting to sound a little bit kind of muddy, a little bit too much build up at the front. And especially if we bring in the rest of the tracks.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take
a little bit too much build up. That's the best way of describing it. But if we add some pre-delay, what it does is add a delay before the reverb kicks in, after the original source. So just to demonstrate, let's bring this pre-delay up.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take the long road if you choose.
See, it's taking 133 milliseconds before the reverb kicks in.
Just take your chances with whatever may seem real.
So it stops this kind of effect of having 2 copies on top of each other, basically. That was a bit too much. Let's dial in about 50 milliseconds, I think.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take the long road if you choose to walk it blind. Just take your chance.
Think about there. Maybe bring the mix down a little bit. And let's hear it with the rest. You can compare with the pre-delay and without.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take the long road if you choose to walk it blind. Just take your chances with whatever may seem real. Then open up your mind with just an iota of zeal.
Yeah, it just gives it a bit of space. Without any pre-delay at all, it sounds like a really small room, like I'm singing in a bathroom or something. So yeah, definitely consider using pre-delay, especially on vocals. Might sound a little bit weird on percussions or more percussive instruments, but with vocals and other rhythmic instruments, definitely it's worth experimenting with pre-delay. And the second technique I want to show you to help you avoid getting muddy reverbs in your mixes is using EQ on the reverb itself. So I've got a different reverb here. It's a plate again, similar kind of setup with the pre-delay and the size and everything. But this one has a built-in EQ, just so you can see what I'm doing. And what that EQ does is only affects the reverb tail, the reverb itself, not the original track. So have a listen to this.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find.
and then we can make
You can't
EQ
take the
changes
long
to the
road
reverb.
if you choose to walk it blind. Just take your chances with whatever may seem real. Then open up your
the top
mind
end.
with just an iota of zeal.
So you got that really kind of crispy reverb with a big high shelf there. So as you heard, when I boosted that EQ on the low end and the low mids, it started to sound a lot more muddy because you've got a real low end build up, and especially when we've got the bass instruments in there, the bass, the kick and everything. Let's have a listen.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take the long road.
It's starting to sound really muddy and not particularly nice. But if we reduce some of the bass,
search your soul for answers and then tell me what you find. You can't take the long road.
maybe bring the
if you
reverb
choose
up a little
walk
bit
it
to
blind.
compensate
Just
the level
take
drop.
your chances with whatever may seem real. Then open up your mind with just an iota of zeal.
So you can still hear that reverb in there, but there's a lot less low end build up. It's clearer, it's cleaner. This is quite a simple EQ built into this one. It's just got 2 filters. But if you have your reverb on a bus, I've got a few down there on buses, and I do recommend you do that rather than having them as inserts on the track itself. You'll be able to add any EQ plugin you want to that bus, so you'll be able to make some much more precise EQ moves, and also it means it's going to affect the reverb for any track that's using that auxiliary reverb bus. So yeah, definitely consider giving EQ a go if you're struggling with muddy mixes, muddy reverbs, or you can try boosting the top end and things. Or if you've got quite a bright vocal, you might want to consider bringing the top end down a little bit and focusing more on the mid-range to sort of differentiate the 2 sounds and sort of keep the reverb out of the way of the main vocal. And the third technique I'm going to show you today, a little bit more advanced, but it can be very useful. It's side chaining your reverb to the vocal. You got a reverb bus with a reverb on it. I've got my Vox reverb there going to bus 13 and 14, and I've got a vocal plate on that. And then I'm sending the vocals to bus 33 and using that to activate, let's change that one, to activate a compressor on the reverb channel. So we're compressing the reverb, but only when the vocals are singing. And the effect that has, which you'll hear in a minute, is it reduces the level of reverb while the original vocals are there. So you get a really clear reverb between words, between phrases, but you don't get as much reverb when the vocals are going on or on any track that you're doing this on. So let's just activate the reverb on that channel and have a listen.
Search your soul for answers and then tell me
So
what
it's going
you
through that
find.
reverb.
Then open up your mind with just
And now I'm
an
going to activate
iota of
this
zeal.
compressor.
Your problems manifest as something more than just a joke. Your
quite so
vision's
hard.
growing darker because you're about to choke.
So you can hear the reverb increases in volume in between phrases, and it avoids that build up while the vocals are going on. Let's hear it with the rest of the mix.
You can't take the long road if you choose to walk it blind. Just take your chances with whatever may seem real. Then open up your mind with just an iota of zeal. Your problem.
Not only can this help you to get a clearer reverb sound, it can also make for some very interesting effects if you want to use it as a more obvious effect. But in an actual mix, I'd probably use this a little bit more subtly. I wouldn't go down in volume quite so much. You don't want the listener to be able to hear a kind of weird ducking on the reverb there. But just subtle use of this, also on delays as well, it's very helpful. Can really help to clean up your reverbs and your mixes. And before you go, just one final tip. don't use too much reverb. Less is more with reverb and other wet dry effects. Some instruments just don't need it at all, and vocals often don't need as much of it as you think. And especially if you have like an insert reverb on each track with 5-6 different reverb types, often all you need is maybe 2-3 max. Different types of reverbs across a mix, and just use them subtly. If you find that it's all getting a bit much, literally just bringing down that wet dry control or bringing down the level of reverb that you're sending each track to can make such a difference without having to mess with anything else. But yeah, if you're struggling with muddy reverbs, give those techniques a try and let me know how you get on in the comment section below. If you're still struggling, then I'll see if I can help. And for more mixing tips and tutorials, hit that subscribe button below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.